Howdy guys, in today's video we're going to be looking at the difference between vector and raster images, and this will be for our bitmap feature. But before that, let's have a quick intro first. So today's video can be found on softwaretraining.co.za. We make short and easy to watch problem solving videos, and we also have daily updates. Now if we head into the program, so like I mentioned, we're going to be looking at the differences between vector and raster images. But before that, let's quickly just import some. So I'm going to go to our file, import, and select a raster and a vector image. So click import. First, let's click the raster where we want that, and then it's going to give us our vector. I'm just going to scale the vector so it's the same or similar size to the actual raster on the right. Doesn't have to be exact, it's just so we can kind of get a good idea of what's happening. So then now we have these two selected, we can kind of run into some more info of it. So now vector in general, it is images that is you'll get it in formats like AI or SVG. You know, it's like just to mention, there's obviously a lot of PDFs also come in vector formats, where the raster, again, this is more formats like PNG, JPEG, TIFF, and so forth. So it's more like pixel based, and that is where the main difference between these two come in. So vector, especially, it's a mathematical equation from one point to another point. That's why when we do node tools and so forth, we have 2 points and the in-between distance and so forth gets calculated. Same with the curvature. It becomes a calculation of what is the difference between those two. That's why we can change it afterwards. Where to change a raster afterwards, it just becomes a nightmare. So that is something to keep in mind. Now there is some pros and cons of using the two, but before we get into that, let's just quickly look at raster. So raster, again, the main difference is it is pixel based. So this thing consists out of hundreds, sometimes thousands, sometimes millions of little pixels that consist of different colors. So every little pixel has its own color assigned to it, and that is primarily what you'll find in stuff like photography and so forth. That is normally pixel based, so it's very high quality, but it comes at the cost of size as well. Where vector, again, can be very small, but at the cost of quality. So if you're doing something more simple, maybe stylized, you can get away with vector, or like logos and graphics design often is done with vector instead of raster. You can, however, many times do a vector design and then export it as a raster. So that is also popular in web development. So you'll make the logo, scale it to the right size, and export it as a raster, just to try optimize space. Now some pros and cons. So the pros of vector, my apologies, is that you can scale this up to a size of a boom board and you won't lose any quality. So if I had to zoom in to this eye, okay, now I've converted it, but you can see at no point does this become pixelated. It just stays smooth lines. So I could go in as far as this thing allows me and nothing changes. So that is one pro of it. But the negative, like we mentioned before, is that you're normally limited to quality. So if we wanted some nice landscape and we want to vectorize it, then you will lose a lot of color information, and it will start looking kind of either like you've set your color mode to something like index, or that you may be going for more like a stylized look. So that's kind of a con of that, but it's, in the graphic design industry, vector is a winner. Then in raster, the pros and cons. The pros is obviously you can get way higher quality, but the cons is also it's very fixed, so you cannot easily change it. And like if I had to take a high quality image, maybe a landscape, anything like that, scale it down and then try scale it back up, we will never get the same quality. Because if I zoom in here, you can see it starts pixelating, and every one of these pixels has its own color information. So if I had to open up our the wrong one, let's open our color palette here, or color mixer, and we can see we've got information here on the RGB. Now let me zoom here so you guys can see a bit better. Now if I had to go to our actual color picker, I'll choose that, or eyedropper, and then if I click anywhere here, it's going to show us the color update on this picker, as you can see. Click black and so forth. So it is just so in other words, it saves every single pixel, saves its own colors, and that is why you get stuff like megapixel and so forth. So the higher the megapixel, the more pixels it pretty much has for the image to save information on, and then the image also becomes bigger in return but higher quality. So yeah, that's kind of like the main difference between the two. Is the one, everything is calculated per pixel, and the other one, it gets calculated more on a mathematical equation. So it is way smaller, it runs faster, but at the cost of quality. Now in general, when it comes to printing and cutting, you'll definitely want to work with vector. There's tools that you can use raster and convert it to vector. So that is one way you can go about it. But cutting, you want as smooth lines as you can. When it comes to printing, you can get away with vector, but in general, most printing is done with raster. So especially when it comes to photography and so forth. And that is where they'll have the overline. So you'll have your raster image printed with maybe registration marks, and then it will have a vector shape as the contour that you will afterwards come with a machine and cut out, and then you know you've got a nice clean contour cut. But yeah, otherwise that is it on the two differences. One you'll mostly use for graphics design, and the other one maybe photography and like painting, digital painting and so forth. In the meanwhile though, before we carry on with the bitmap feature, if we head here to softwaretraining.co.za, you guys will notice we've got a variety of different softwares we do cover, and you can also isolate your search here on the top right. If you do not, however, find the training videos you're looking for, just simply go here, request a training video, fill in the mini form, and then we'll do our best to try and make that for you. But otherwise, thanks guys for watching, and cheers.